practice, yeah.
Unless it's good. And
No, it is. Let's look at it like that way, because I'll be a little bit more comfortable.
Totally practice.
Yeah.
This is totally practice.
Practicing.
Yeah, we're just practicing.
Practicing making videos.
Yes. Practice.
You have to keep that in.
So David, you've been telling me about the new message. I'm curious. What's it about?
Yeah, there's a new message from God. It's very big, expansive. It's bringing a new reality for our times and for the future. It's being received by this man named Marshall Summers, and there are several corridors of this message. One is pertaining to the intervention of extraterrestrial races surreptitiously into our societies, and it covers that. And so, like, this new reality that it's bringing is the reality that we're not alone in the universe, and we have to figure out how to function in a universe filled with races that are much older than we are, and that have been around a lot longer than we are, and that have maintained stability throughout eons. While we, and we're a young race. We're just kind of experiencing the limits of our world now, and we're kind of like seeing how far our technology can take us. So that's one part of this new reality, learning to function, in a universe full of intelligent life. And the other part of this new reality is that humanity is not going to be living on a planet where, like, the scales are in its favor. The balance is kind of tipped, such that life is going to become a lot more challenging for the human family because of the population increase and the decline of natural resources, which are the foundation for all the affluence that we experience. So the core piece of this is to help prepare humanity for a future world that will not really be in our favor, and that will be a more challenging place. But it also provides a warning about these things, and a blessing. It provides a pathway to gain a connection to knowledge, with a capital K, which is the greater intelligence that the creator of life has placed within everybody. It talks about the separation and separation, and there's a pathway to find that piece of you that has not separated, and that is not corruptible, and that is represents life beyond this world, this reality that we experience on the day-to-day.
So it gives concrete suggestions as to how people can reshape their lives?
Yeah, absolutely. There's over 9,000 pages of revelation have been received, and one book in particular called Steps to Knowledge is a curriculum with 365 steps and lessons that guide that restore that connection, that teach you how to find that, and how to rediscover that, and how to build that. So definitely, it does give concrete steps to developing the inner life.
Do you have some examples?
One step that I found really kind of surprising and almost like an affront to my ego when I was first practicing was I'm a beginning student of knowledge, because at that time I was very sure that I was very advanced. student. You know, I'd been practicing meditation for a few years at that point, so I assumed I was pretty advanced. And the reason that this is such a great lesson is because it teaches that a beginning student is in a position to learn all things. And this is not like a foreign idea. It's present in all the world's religions. The idea of having the beginner's point of view, or the beginner's mind, when you're approaching life, basically allows you to see the situation as it is, and it allows you to continue learning throughout your entire life. So you don't reach, or realize you don't really reach a point of completion, so to say, like where you know everything in this lifetime. So that was very humbling. It was very humbling for me, for my ego. That was a lesson. The very first lesson is really poignant as well. The very first step, it's knowledge is with me. Where am I? Where am I? What am I doing? And it asks you to consider that, I think, for 10 minutes for three times in that day. And I found that a lot of times I'm running around and I'm not present. And having practiced that step, it's taught me how to rein my mind back in and to be with myself effectively. And it's changed my life, the quality of my relationships, having this practice. And I could go on. I'll share another really profound teaching is Wisdom from the Greater Community, which it touches on every aspect of life: health, marriage, commitment, fulfillment, devotion. There's a chapter on each of these topics that the way that it's presented is so accessible and it seems so obvious, but I wonder why I've never resonated or heard it really put that way anywhere else. So it's for example, the lessons on money. They teach that money is like a tool. It's not evil. It's not inherently good or bad. It's just a tool to access resources, and so it's full of practical guidance for the myriad problems and difficulties that people face. There's a prophetic part of this called the Great Waves of Change, which deals with all of the changes that are happening: political instability, disease, changing climate and weather and things like that. And it gives recommendations on where to live. To put yourself out of harm's way as best as you can, to not live in a place that's prone to flooding, to keep a 3-month supply of food in your house in case you do face a natural disaster. It touches on so many topics, and I'm still a beginning student and continuing to learn all things. And there's a community of students who are practicing this around the world, and I would have never met all of these people who are of like mind, without participating in the community. And there's chats. There's a school online that people study together, certain corridors of the message, whether it's God and creation, or the Great Ways of Change, or the Greater Community. Every 2 months they change that. So it's been a wild ride. Yeah.
Right. From your perspective, where is the world headed? All things held equal, no major shifts. and where could it go if there are positive shifts?
Yeah, I feel like right now humanity has a great opportunity, like a very important opportunity to become a united race. And I'm not saying that we're all going to become one nation with one government or anything like that. But I feel like the opportunity is for humanity to secure its position in the greater community by creating a more equitable and sustainable world, so that we can't, be taken advantage of. You know, so because we have this crisis where we really do need to get things together to figure out how we will provide for the 7, 8, 9 billion people on the planet. Now, that crisis could unite the human race, and it could end war outright, because people would realize that we're not going to be able to rebuild these countries. We're barely making it ourselves. We have to unite to survive, and I feel like that's the great opportunity of our times, that we could move forward and become a more mature, evolving, advancing race that preserves its planet, that doesn't, the flip side of that is if we do destroy and undermine the environment, well, that is the foundation of all affluence, essentially, in the world. And humanity could decline and fall into war and competition between the nations, fighting for the remaining resources, and terrible things could happen. I mean, entire populations could be annihilated in order to gain those vital resources for another group. So we're at a turning point where we either unite to survive, or we remain divided, and we fight it out amongst each other. And in which case, I feel like humanity will begin a permanent decline. So that's why this work is so important. I mean, it says everything about the kind of lives our kids will live and their kids will live, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I feel like that is the great opportunity. We unite because we must, to survive.
How do you confront that less evolved mindset? Maybe someone or a group of people who are more weighted down by greed and self-interest in a very kind of narrow, egocentric sense of the term. What is the message for that element?
There's certainly a message for them, but my approach is to find people who are already open and who are already searching, because I feel like there are enough people out there who are already of that mindset, but they just haven't found the group of people who can give form to their feelings and their yearnings, their deep yearnings. They aren't happy, and they know that, and they know something needs to change in their life, but no one has grabbed them. They haven't found anything that has kind of shaken them awake and provided a pathway. So they're kind of stuck. So, I just search for people who already are aligned with me and what I'm doing. And if it's a constant battle to try to work with somebody, then I feel like it's a waste of my energy.
Right.
And so I look elsewhere. Yeah.
Right. So it's in ways more expedient and efficient, and even simultaneously more rewarding to just collect with people who are of the transformational mindset.
Sure.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In that way, you can radiate efforts outward and attract even more people to the same kind of message, or to the same kind of demonstration of a better way to live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are many ways of doing that, and I believe everybody has an avenue for contribution. That because there are thousands of various solutions that need to be provided to maintain a stable world, like human family. So I feel like there'll be many different groups of people working for the same purpose
Right.
on different activities based on their design.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So everyone, it's just about kind of like inspiring those people to move forward and say, it's time to step up and make your contribution.
Right, and providing a pathway. A lot of people are really disillusioned by religion, the world's religions, and in a way that's kind of declining. But and many people also do find a pathway and the traditions of the past. But I feel like there is a critical mass of people who haven't found their way in those religions because they've become so corrupted and so adulterated,
co-opted as a tool of control.
Mm-hmm. And whether it's meeting a certain person or whether it's practicing steps to knowledge or it's another practice. I do feel like people do need to meet the reality of their times, and they need to be guided because the scope of it is bigger than anything the human family has dealt with before. So God would of course have to send another message to humanity. I feel that God does love humanity and wants to see it become a free race, one that is not controlled by foreign powers, that is self-determined, and it can maintain its freedom and its value of individual freedom. But we can't necessarily, we don't know enough to see the entire picture of what's happening. So I feel like God has spoken again for this purpose, to kind of awaken humanity's latent inner knowledge and potential at this time, where it's so needed, so necessary to have, because that greater strength that resides within us is the strength that we'll need to handle the challenges that we're facing as a race. Otherwise, I feel like many people will kind of be lost and wondering what happened to the world that they grew up in, and could really become depressed and dejected and without like this guiding hand.
Well, how would you describe your process to coming to, let's say, a more evolved or a greater or maybe just a different perspective, a different type of consciousness? What were the internal factors that caused you to grow in your consciousness? What sort of got you on this path in general and kind of put you in this direction?
Sure. Well, I guess I was fortunate to grow up in a family that didn't indoctrinate me really in any type of like religious teaching at all. And both of my parents were kind of not really satisfied with what they had known. So there were books around the house like Neil Donald Walsh, like Conversations with God was one that I read I think when I was 14. And just to have that, there was kind of an opening there, like a kind of understanding that God was something else. It wasn't what was being taught in the churches, on Sunday. And I guess I reached a point where it wasn't so much, my choice, but I went through a series of encounters and events with influential people who taught me like meditation, and who just, I was awakened in a way when I was at a certain age. When I was 19, I met a man named Dan Emmons who was a teacher of meditation, and something really indescribable happened, and I would never be the same after that. While I was reading a book that he had authored, and I was working with him as well. I was given this book through kind of a variety of circumstances that are pretty surprising, but I won't get into that. And I just had this kind of, all of a sudden, I had this incredible attraction to the inner life, where I didn't really have that. I never had it so strongly ever before, and it almost overshadowed everything else that was happening in my life at the time. I was going to university, going to school, and dealing with my family, and this was so big that I knew I had to leave my former life for a time at least to find out what this was. It was so vitally important that I knew there was something else, and I can't explain it. And it was very mysterious to me, still is. And I began meditating intensively for hours a day for a number of years, for about 2 years, and I developed a sensitivity and kind of connection to my inner guidance system, which led me to Chengdu, China, of all places. Incredibly, nothing. I would have never have thought to do this on my own, but I was just getting these inner cues pushing me towards, like, hey, study Chinese. Hey, change schools, and I was told, I heard within myself to go to this place in China, and I did. I guess that was in 2010, and then I found I was living on a hall with another person who shared Marshall's work with me, and it just immediately, all of it was so relevant, and it was what I was searching for. It was what was missing, and I bought all the books that were out at that time, and I delved into them, and then I kind of slowly returned to my old life, but with a new awareness that there was something greater for me, and I've been building that ever since, actively, through my, there's the 4 pillars of something they talk about, which is your health, your relationships, your inner practice, and your career, your providership, your ability to provide, and through that, I've been coming back, but with, I need to build all of these things so that I can be a stable person, and something could really be put on my shoulders, in the future, and I'm still engaged in that process. So that's kind of my story of how I got here.
Right. So that process of kind of like reconnecting, in a sense, you can never go home again because you don't return to a former self in the way that you formerly were. You return to sort of like maybe a more stable or a more normalized existence, having reflected deeply inwardly and learned a lot. So what does that look like? What is that new life like?
Sure. That period of time, for several years, where I felt like I had to pull away from all the influences, was to allow me to kind of integrate this profound experience, and I was kind of afraid that it was so important and that it would get swept away by the influences of people and places and things. So I withdrew from that until I had the strength to kind of return and focus on that, and so without losing my connection to the inside. And so, a lot of, how does that look? a lot of the times it's really simple. Uh, it's going to work, but it's being guided by a power that is very, you know, discreet and subtle while at work, and you know, being in relationship with people like it was before, but following the guidance and the presence that's within myself and within other people, instead of seeking a relationship for distraction or for amusement or entertainment, primarily, as I had done in the past, and you know, taking my health more seriously. You know, you know, exercising and eating better than I had before, because you know, I realized my body is the instrument. It's my vehicle to communicate with everybody down here. And so, you know, that has got to function. If that doesn't work, then, you know, maybe I wasn't taking as good of care of my body. I didn't really exercise like I do now, because I value my body more, myself more. And before, I really didn't have a meditation practice, you know, before when I was in high school, but that's something I do every day now.
Right.
So,
How would you describe the contribution that you want to make to the world beyond yourself?
yeah, that's a good question. You know, I would say that, you know, my contribution would be along the lines of spreading an awareness of the reality that we're living in, and doing all that I can to better the position of my world and my, you know, my community, to face a declining, a shrinking well of resources, and to face that situation, and to be able to thrive eventually, you know, in a world that is more challenging. So I hope that answers your question.
Good enough, yeah. Good
Yeah.
enough. Well, do you have any concluding thoughts that you want to share?
Not at this time, but I would like to direct everybody to, you know, explore the New Message. It's available for free online at www.newmessage.org. And I would encourage everybody who does feel strength, and who feels strong, or who feels like they want to be strong, or they need to be stronger than they are today, to start taking steps by exploring these resources that are available, or even implementing projects in your community or in your home, whether that's building a garden, or putting a solar panel on your house, or helping an elderly neighbor. I would just encourage you to do that, and to live in the spirit of service that you're designed to live in. So, yeah.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome, Sean. Yeah.